Hello, now I'm going to create a demonstration how my program works inside a microcontroller. And I'm going to share my screen because I'm going to use STM32CUBE IDE. Okay, and I'm going to take the most from my previous program, the stack example, because as I said previously in the last video in code blocks, my new program Q example is going to share a lot of code with my previous example, stack example. The only thing I have to do is to change my pull function, because in the stack, when I pull a node from the stack, I have to pull the last node. But in queues, I have to pull the first node on the queue. It's the only difference, and it's the only change I have to make inside my new project. So the first thing I have to do is to create a new project. In this project, I'm going to call a Q example. I have to select my nuclear board. In this case, I'm using an STM32F411RE nuclear board. And lately, I have to generate my code using the HAL functions. Okay, I'm selecting my nucleo F411RE, selecting next. Okay, I have to, I'm going to create in a new location, downloads STM32. I'm going to create a folder called Q sample. Now, sorry, I have to create here. Change it in here. The example. Select the folder. And the name is going to be Q sample as well. Started language C, executable, STM32CUBE, and finish. The wizard is working to create my project. We have to wait for a few seconds more. It's finishing. Okay, it has finished. Now, this is my device, my microcontroller I'm going to use, and I'm going to configure my USART as a synchronous. Baud rate is going to be now 1600. It could be well 11.5 to 200, but I prefer to put this lowest this lower speed, because I want you to see anytime I press a key, or anytime the microcontroller sends the menu to the terminal, you'll see, or you'll be able to easily to see the LEDs blinking when the user is sending or receiving any data. I mean, the baud rate is going to be 9600, 8 bits, non-parity, and 1 stop bit. And I'm going to change this one because I think for this speed we don't need to do so many samples for each data. I'm not going to use the DMA or interruptions. And I think this is all I have to do. The pins are configured. Now I'm going to generate my code automatically, which is working. Okay. Now I have my two projects. The first thing I want to make is to create my workspaces as libraries. I mean, I'm using three libraries: library math for mathematical, library stack, and my project is going to be library Q, and a library to UR to manage the functions to manage the functions to call and to play with the UART. And this is a good way to have an order, to have addressed my functions. Instead to put all my functions inside my main, I'm going to use the concept divide and conquer. Okay, and now I'm going to create these folders, the same folders here in my new project, Q example, file, Alt-Shift-N, Alt-Shift-N. I'm going to create a folder inside Q the example. Is going to say library math. Inside my library math, I'm going to create another file, another another folder called include, for my include files, my files.h, and I'm going to create another folder more for my source files inside my library math. Okay, we have our my library math with inside includes and sources folders. And now I'm going to create the same structure, folder structures, sorry, for my library queue. Inside my library queue, I'm going to create another folder, library queue, for my includes. And I'm going to create another folder for my source files inside my library queue. And now I'm going to create like the workspace or my library. For example, my library UART. And inside my library UART, I'm going to create my folder for my includes and my folders for my source files. Okay. Now I'm going to copy my files from my previous program to my current program, current project. Okay, library math, library stack, Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V. There are my files here. Yes, they are. Oh, something happens here. Oh yeah, I create, going to delete, and the last one I have to copy and paste this one. Okay, I'm going to close my project because I don't want to make any errors. Delete. Okay. Now I'm going to tell the program that those folders are going to be workspaces. Those folders, my project has to look for the header files and source files. How do I have to do this? I have to go here, go here, check properties, and in this point, okay, better here. In this point, I have to say inside this point includes, I have to add a workspace and look for where my includes files are. I'm going to add another one, another workspace for the Q library, and select the folder where my header file is. And the last one for workspace for the UART library. So you have to select the include folder. Here we are, my 3 folders. And now I'm going to tell the program, the project, where it has to locate my source files. I'm going to add folders. I'm going to select all these 3 and apply and close. And now we can see my folder has changed. We can see the files were different. The icon is different than before because the project has recognized my files as source files and header files, and recognized my folders as source folders. Okay, this is going to work as libraries, as stacked libraries, maybe. Okay, here we are. We have our main. I have to add in my include my libraries of left math. Left math.h include left. I'm going to say q.h and I'm going to say include library ur.h. Okay, I have to change the name of this file because it doesn't match. You can see the program is complaining because it can find this file because this file is named as a stack.h. So I'm going to rename it as q library q.h. So that update all the reference. Okay. And here I'm going to do the same. I'm going to rename. I'm going to say q.c, library q.c. Validate all the reference. We can see the program doesn't complain anymore. And I need to define here. Define. I hope it was the length name. Max name length 15. And now I have to copy and paste my mine. Okay. This is calling, okay, here. I have to add my previous, I'm going to open my recent stack example. I think it's, I don't know where it is. Open. Going to look for my directory stack example. Here I am. For source main. Okay, here is my main. Okay, it was choice land. My define has to be choice land. Was trying to guess. Okay, here have to add this code. I have to copy this code. And while okay, from here to here. And I'm going to copy this last lines. Change the program and return. I'm going to erase these lines from the previous, from the code blocks. I don't need them anymore. There were statements in code blocks to check how the stat worked, but I don't use them because there are other statements I'm not going to use here. Okay, here we are, but everywhere it says stack. Okay, I'm going to change. Sorry, I'm going to find and replace stack, replace with queues. Everywhere, not case sensitive, replace all. Here, I just replace it, close. Make previous is not changed it. Hope so. Yes, it's not changed it. I'm going to close my previous project to avoid any errors. Okay, and now what do I have to do now? I have to all the code here is the same. I don't have to change anything. The only thing I have to do is to go to my Q library and say, okay, here library stack, no, it has to be Q. Sorry, not capital. Okay. Everything push is going to be the same, and I'm going to change pool. Here I have to change the same as I did in the code block demonstration. I have to say boolean error is going to be the same. I'm going to check if the stack, the queue is empty. If it's empty, I can't pull anything from an empty node, an empty queue. So error equals 1, I'll return the error. If the stack, if the queue is not empty, I have to copy the new node from not the last node. I have to copy them from the first node. The first node and copy from the first node because I have to extract the first node, not the last node, as I did on the stack when my program trades or deal with the stack. Okay, I have to copy the variables, the elements from the first node. This is the reason, because I'm changing these variables. Okay, so checking if the current last node is equals to the current first node. So it means is the last node is equals to the first node. There is only one node left on the queue. So it means I have to free the first node. It's equal to pointer to the last node. I have to free the memory and set the first node and the last node as null, and reset these pointers. Else, what do you have to do? I have to update the current last node to the pointer to the previous node. Last node, no, the current first node to the pointer to the second node. I mean, pointer to the first node has to be pointed to the first node pointer to the next node. Okay, this is the first node, my new first node pointer, and it was to point to the second node, because the old first node is going to disappear. So the second node is pointed to the first node that points to the next node. This is my second node. So the second node is going to become the first node. When I did it, I have to free the memory. I have to free the memory pointed at the first node that points to the previous node that is the old first node. Also previous. The new first node that points to the previous node was the old pointer to the first node, or pointer to the old first node. And the pointer to the first node that points to the previous node has to be null, because once I freed the memory from the old first node, the new first node has to point to the previous node to nothing, because there is any node previously. And this is all I have to do. Let's check if there are any errors. Zero errors and zero warnings. Now I'm going to check how it works on my microcontroller. See you in a few.